Alright, I know there are gonna be some of you who are completely irate at this video before you even have a chance to hear it out. But just so you know, this video is in no way a declarative statement of me saying that the Velveteen Dream is, or that I believe him to be innocent. However, it's also me not saying that he's guilty either. This video is just merely asking a question, and I know there's still some folks out there who get mad at just that alone too. Although, with that being the case, why am I making this video then? Well, the reality is, this question is one that I think we, not just as wrestling fans, but as a society in general, need to ask. And it's a question that I think we don't ask often enough anymore. And so we might as well go ahead and get started, as this is going to be one loaded episode. Because today... Alright, so since you're still watching at this point, I guess it shows that you're willing to at least hear me out and that you like flexing your critical thinking muscles. And with this being the Thinking Fans channel, I hope that you're subscribed and you're a member of the Know-It-All Nation, as it really helps to support this channel. And if you like this kind of content, please give this video a big thumbs up. And now that we've said that, let's go ahead and just get into it. Now, believe it or not, in the United States, our legal system was not designed to put the guilty in jail. It was actually created to keep the innocent out. But when you realize that we have about 2 million citizens in incarceration at any given moment, you kinda can't help but wonder how good are we actually doing with that original goal. Okay, so now I'm just gonna outright say it. Despite this goofy outfit, this is a really serious subject. I'm just trying to bring some levity to this situation. And there's so many points and counterpoints to this entire equation that if you were expecting an outright answer, well, spoiler warning, you're not gonna get one. Now, we will be talking about the Velveteen Dream eventually, but just like they do in legal proceedings, I am going to be citing precedents, as we're going to be looking at some other cases in order to illustrate my point. And for this first one, let's tell the tale of the Hurricane, because at one point in time, he could have been the champion of the world. And no, I'm not talking about Gregory Helms. Reuben Hurricane Carter was arrested, tried, and convicted for a crime that he did not commit, but nevertheless, he still spent almost 2 decades in prison. During his years in incarceration from 1967 all the way to 1985, the system had failed Carter, with his story even inspiring Bob Dylan to write the song Hurricane in 1975, as well in 1999 being the basis for the film The Hurricane starring Denzel Washington as Reuben. But not everybody gets a Hollywood film and a song written about their innocence, as many times the media can actually be the enemy. When we read a headline or hear that somebody has been arrested, most of us almost instantaneously begin to believe that the accused is guilty, even without anything else to go on than just that. They say that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And when we look back at McCarthyism and the witch trials, we can see that there were times in human history where accusations and sentencing were almost one and the same, resulting in many people being afraid to even speak up, fearing that they might be next on a chopping block if they even ask a question. But speaking of which, I am reminded of yet another play, 12 Angry Men, which shows just how one person can make a difference. And it also demonstrated that when a person's life is on the line, you should always be willing to at least discuss it. After all, the results are going to be pretty permanent. By the way, does anyone think I should be worried about this? Now, there are some out there who have drawn some pretty obvious parallels between the times that we talked about and today's cancel culture, making it so much more imperative that we don't take anything for granted and that we're open about discussing matters of the accused, especially remembering that the court of public opinion doesn't have any actual regulations. And also, when it comes to the public, I don't think everyone is necessarily aware that their opinions aren't always their own, as oftentimes what we think is greatly affected by what others have to say. And this is exactly why, for big trials, juries are usually sequestered, keeping them away from the media so they aren't influenced by outside sources. And the internet has only worked to make this even more of a problem, as it's become something of an echo chamber, with people regurgitating other opinions that they hear without even thinking about what they really mean or even fact-checking them, resulting in a society where many people just don't think for themselves anymore. For example, allow me to ask you a question. Who is Casey Anthony? Now, if you replied, she's the woman that killed her kid, well, that's the exact answer that I was expecting. It's also wrong, because while Casey Anthony was arrested and was tried for that, I need to point out that she was also acquitted, and that is a fact. However, I can already feel the tension coming off of some of you right now, as I'm sure that there are some of you at this very moment who are saying to yourselves, not guilty doesn't mean innocent, and you're right, it doesn't. Not guilty simply means, well, not guilty. But even knowing that, some of you instinctually still feel something to the effect of the contrary. Because the sad part is, facts don't change how people feel, even though they probably should. Because even though an entire trial was held and a jury of her peers decided that there was not enough evidence to convict, some of you still feel like you know better than that entire courtroom proceeding. Okay, so now, as this pertains to the Velveteen Dream, or Patrick Clark, which is his real name, he recently broke his silence on social media when he said, "Don't dream it, be it. Hashtag bring back Velveteen Dream." He also earlier wrote, "Despite trashy and unsavory allegations against me that I have beat, I'd still like to have a career within the E." However, even though the Dream is asking for a second chance, it's not looking likely that he's going to get one, as breaking his silence on social media isn't the only thing that the Dream has done recently that has caught the public's attention. As reported by WrestlingHeadlines.com, former WWE NXT superstar The Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, was arrested on Friday, August 26th in Orlando, Florida, and charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. A booking page on MugshotOrlando.com indicates that Clark was arrested on an out-of-county warrant. It was additionally reported that Dream was also arrested on Saturday, August 20th by the Orlando Police Department. He was charged then with first-degree battery, a misdemeanor, and first-degree trespassing on property after warning, also a misdemeanor. And it was further reported by WrestlingHeadlines.com that this out-of-county warrant arrest is tied to a significant drug case that he caught last year. And yet, we're still not done yet, as wrestler EC3 has also accused Velveteen Dream of recording him while he was in the bathroom, to which Clark has responded on Instagram denying all allegations and telling his side of the story. But all that being the same, has the damage already been done? Now, knowing all this, it does seem like a rather open and shut case now, doesn't it? Well, not necessarily, and for that, let's go back to the story of the hurricane. For you see, the case that we talked about earlier wasn't Carter's only brush with the law, as he had several run-ins earlier before he was incarcerated. And even after released, he would be arrested yet again for a crime that he didn't commit, but at least this time around he would be promptly released. The point is, it's important to remember that just because somebody has prior arrests, or even if they were found guilty of another crime, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're guilty of this one. And even as obvious as it may seem, taking things on a case-by-case basis is still something that I feel a lot of us still need reminding of. But I should also take this time to point out that in almost 99% of all cases, the party found guilty is usually the first and most obvious suspect. But as I said, this isn't going to be easy, because even knowing that, we still also have to take into consideration the amount of people who have pled guilty simply because they were pressured into thinking that it was their best option, even when it wasn't. Oftentimes, a quick conviction is the most favorable, and because of that, there are those who will try and manipulate the accused, getting them to confess to a crime that they didn't commit simply because they feel like they have no better alternative. And this is fairly reasonable to get someone who is scared and caught off guard to think, because fair legal representation is really expensive, and most innocent people don't just have thousands of dollars simply lying around in case of a rainy day. And speaking of which, there is yet one more case that I would like to bring up, and it's that of Troy Davis. Troy Davis would spend about half of his life in prison, even though upon appeal, his own legal team admitted that they didn't give him the best possible counsel, stating that what they were doing was akin to triage, and that they weren't providing him with active or effective legal representation. And keep in mind that a fair trial is one of the basic rights of the accused. Furthermore, 7 of the 9 witnesses recanted their testimony, and out of the remaining 2, one of them was the next primary suspect. And further still, half of the jurors for the case admitted that they had changed their minds. And so now, examining everything that I just said, and remembering that our legal system would rather 100 guilty men go free than allow one innocent man to spend one day behind bars, I think it's safe to say that Troy Davis qualifies as reasonable doubt. He was executed in 2011. No, our legal system isn't perfect, and what legal system really is. But in the end, we have to remember that these are people's lives on the line. These are people's livelihoods on the line. And if we're going to condemn someone, we better be sure that we mean it. Okay, so now, looking back at all this, I understand that some terrible allegations have been made against the Velveteen Dream, and he has been arrested more than once for some very serious charges. However, until a conviction is actually made, as far as the law is concerned, he is not actually guilty. And in terms of his recent arrest, if he is indeed found guilty of those, it still doesn't mean that he's necessarily guilty of the other things that he is accused of. And no, it doesn't mean that he's innocent either. But furthermore, as we just talked about, sometimes even being found guilty also doesn't necessarily mean that you are either. I said it right from the start. I am not going to tell you that Velveteen Dream is guilty or innocent, because I don't know. And again, there are no easy answers. But I meant it when I said it. We don't think critically anymore, even though we really need to. But we're never going to get to that if we keep putting our blockers up and simply believe the first things that we hear. And as we all should have learned from the play 12 Angry Men, we're only going to get to the truth if we're not afraid to ask questions. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments section, and please make sure that you're a member of the Know-It-All Nation by subscribing to this channel. Thank you for watching, and thank you to all my Patreon supporters out there, and as always, Dave knows.